Title. Wife texted. I'm a free woman, stop tracking me. 12 minutes later, her freedom ended in shock. When you work in cybersecurity, you learn that people's secrets aren't hidden in vaults. They're buried in messages, metadata, and deleted files that never really disappear. My name's Ryan, and for the last 6 years, I've spent my nights tracking digital ghosts, cheating spouses, stolen identities, corporate leaks. I thought I'd seen every kind of betrayal there was. Until I saw my wife's. Hannah and I had been married for 4 years. She was beautiful, smart, and ambitious. The kind of woman who could light up a room just by walking into it. When we met, she worked as a project manager for a marketing firm, and I was the quiet tech guy who preferred code over conversation. Somehow we balanced each other out. Or so I thought. Our relationship started changing about a year ago. Late-night work calls, weekend team trips, and a new password on her phone. I noticed it all. I just didn't want to admit what it meant. The irony wasn't lost on me. I made a living exposing other people's lies, yet ignored the one growing inside my own home. Last month, Hannah planned a girls' weekend in Miami. She packed light, too light for someone who claimed she'd be gone 4 days. I didn't confront her. Instead, I activated a GPS tag I'd quietly installed in her car months ago. It wasn't paranoia. It was habit. The kind of habit that keeps you from getting blindsided. She left Friday morning. I watched her location move south, then stop at a luxury resort, not the budget hotel she'd told me about. I checked the name of the resort's corporate bookings, and my stomach twisted when I saw it. Everline Solutions. That was her firm's biggest client. And their head of marketing, Alex Porter, was the same guy she'd mentioned a little too often lately. I didn't need proof. I needed the truth. That night I texted her. Hope you're having fun. Just wanted to make sure you got there safe. 5 minutes later, her reply came through. I'm a free woman, Ryan. Stop tracking me. My chest tightened. I stared at the screen, rereading those words. Free woman. It wasn't denial anymore. It was defiance. She knew what she was doing, and she wanted me to know too. I didn't reply. I just opened my tracking dashboard and watched her location flicker. 10 minutes later, it started moving fast down the coastal highway. I assumed she was just going out. Then 12 minutes later, the signal froze. It took another 30 seconds before I realized what that meant. She'd stopped moving. Completely. At first, I thought it was a glitch. Bad signal, maybe. But when I refreshed the feed and saw the little red dot still pinned at the same spot on the highway, my instincts kicked in. I zoomed in on the map. The coordinates placed her near a narrow bridge outside the city limits. No hotels, no restaurants, just water and asphalt. My stomach sank. I grabbed my keys and drove. The night air was thick with humidity, and every mile felt heavier than the last. I wasn't sure what I was expecting to find. Maybe her car parked somewhere quiet while she met him nearby. Maybe she'd tossed the tracker out the window to prove a point. But deep down, a darker thought pressed against my chest. 20 minutes later, I saw flashing lights in the distance. Police cruisers. An ambulance. My hands went cold. I slowed down and pulled over when an officer waved me back. Accident just happened, he said. Single vehicle. Bridge rail gave out. I showed him my ID. Told him my wife drove a gray Lexus. The same one behind the barricade, its front end half submerged in the shallow creek below. His expression softened. We pulled her out, he said quietly. She's alive, barely conscious when we found her. They're taking her to County General. My breath hitched. Relief and shock collided inside me. I drove straight to the hospital, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. When I reached the ER, a nurse directed me to a small waiting room. I sat there for what felt like hours before a doctor came out, wiping his hands. She's stable, he said. Mild concussion, a few broken ribs, but she'll recover. When I finally saw her, she looked fragile. Tubes, bandages, a neck brace. But her eyes opened when she heard my voice. For a second, she looked surprised I was there. Then, guilt flickered across her face. Ryan, she whispered. You weren't supposed to track you. I finished. Yeah, I figured that out. Tears welled in her eyes. It wasn't supposed to go this way. I sat down, folding my arms. No, it wasn't supposed to go this way at all. You said you wanted to be free, Hannah. This is what freedom looks like. She turned her face away, crying softly. I didn't feel anger anymore, just exhaustion. I stayed until she fell asleep. Then I looked through her phone, which the nurses had placed on the side table in a plastic bag. One notification still glowed on the lock screen. A message from Alex Porter. It read, I told you not to drive. I'm sorry. That name, Alex Porter, hit me like a punch to the ribs. It wasn't unfamiliar. He'd been around for months, her new work consultant. The guy who texted late at night about campaign ideas and creative edits. I'd met him once at a company event. He shook my hand a little too long and smiled a little too wide. Now everything made sense. I stepped out of the hospital room, phone in hand, and sat in the corridor under the cold fluorescent light. The air smelled like disinfectant and something metallic. I opened her phone using the code she'd never bothered changing. Dozens of messages scrolled up. The kind of intimacy I hadn't seen from her in months. Pictures, voice notes, plans. And then one text, sent just an hour before the crash. Hannah, he keeps tracking me. I'm ending it tonight. I can't take the guilt. Alex, just turn off the phone and come to me. We'll figure it out together. My hands trembled as I locked the phone again. She hadn't just been running from me, she'd been running toward him. But fate, or karma, or whatever you call it, had intercepted. The next morning, I returned home. Her things were still scattered around the living room. Shoes by the door, a half-packed duffel bag on the couch. I sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the divorce papers I'd drafted weeks ago but never filed. Maybe part of me had still hoped she'd come back to her senses. That hope was gone now. When she was discharged 2 days later, I picked her up in silence. She tried to speak, but I didn't respond. Back home, I handed her an envelope. She looked confused until she opened it. The divorce documents, signed and sealed. Her lips parted in disbelief. You're divorcing me? I nodded. You already did that when you texted me, remember? I'm a free woman. I'm just making it official. Her eyes filled with tears. Ryan, I didn't mean. Stop, I interrupted softly. You meant every word. And I heard you loud and clear. She sank into the chair, covering her face. For once, I didn't feel anger or sadness, just peace. As I walked toward the door, she whispered, Please don't leave me. I paused, looked back at her trembling form, and said, You already left me long before you got in that car. Then I stepped out, closing the door behind me. 12 minutes of freedom had cost her everything, and given me mine.